You're listening to Eat, Play, Sex with Dr. Cat, the place to up-level that sexy life of yours, with expert talk on sex, love, and nutrition.
So I'm wondering, like, a lot of people are listening to this show and they're like, what do I do now? Because I'm circumcised, and I don't want to have all these issues. What can they do?
Yeah, well, that's one reason I'm so pleased to
Doomsday.
have this conversation, because so much of this topic is so fraught with anger and defensiveness and
Yeah.
despair, like you say, right?
Yeah.
And no, I mean, there are things that we do all the time. You could be a very happy person, if you've lost body parts, right? And you can have a pleasurable life. Some of the things that I understand can really help. For example, we know compassion and understanding help, right? So instead of thinking that, one of the frequent complaints of American women is that their boyfriends or their male lovers pound them, and it goes on and on forever. And that is likely to be related to circumcision. If it's excessive and the woman is uncomfortable, and the altered penis is not communicating with her clitoris and her G-spot. So one thing that people who are somewhat aware of this, and sometimes it just happens without thinking, it's not conscious, is a woman being on top can be much more satisfying, because she can the man can still feel the pleasure, and she can control the pounding and adjust her body in a way that a woman on the bottom really can't. The other thing that people should feel free to do, and you talk about it, is all kinds of whatever works. I mean, whatever feels good to both people. So manual stimulation and men without foreskins enjoy different kind of manual stimulation than men with foreskins in general. I'm not a sex therapist, but I know that I've heard this from many people. So just being sensitive to what works for both partners is super important. And then not labeling people as somehow a problem or defective. I mean, I've heard women who have said, to their partner, well, it's not my fault that you're missing something, and that's like not going to really.
God, traumatic.
And it's despair and depression and frustration that makes these things happen. But just being in tune with what's going on, it's like getting a diagnosis is a relief, not a curse, right? So realizing, oh my gosh, that's what might be happening here. Wow. Okay, now I can use more lube. I don't have to feel jealous. I mean, don't have to feel guilty, right? Whatever. I think it's just really a greater understanding. And then there are men who choose to restore their foreskins. That's a whole other topic, and it's something I'm not an expert on. But if you look up foreskin restoration online, there are different devices, and there are groups. There are men's groups where this is discussed. Some men report that it's just too onerous and too frustrating, and other men report that it's made an enormous difference in their sexual pleasure, because it restores the sensitivity of the glands. You don't get back the nerves that are lost, but the glands can become moist and sensitive again, and that's very helpful. And
women that's incredible.
Who understand that's why their partners are doing it, that's a good thing. They should understand that's why. It's not some weird fetish. It's a completely understandable way of trying to get back some of what was lost.
And even if it is a fetish, you can fully have that. Whatever rocks your boat.
That's true. Yes. Thank you.
One thing that really stood out for me from what you were saying was that it lessens their ability to feel the arousal, the stage of the arousal as it's building, because those are lost. That blows my mind. And that's something that I work a lot with men who struggle with maintaining erections or with premature ejaculation, is like teaching them about mindful masturbation so that they actively builds that connection with the building stages and the sensations, the changing sensations in arousal, and to train themselves to have that more control of
Mhm.
themselves.
Right.
So it just like I'm just like making all these dots, connecting here of like, oh my God, I wonder if that's related
Right.
to
Right.
circumcision.
Yeah,
Wow.
it could be. It could be. And then I don't know, what that,
Sure.
but probably your clients can teach you about that, right? If they're made
Yeah.
aware that this is going on, they might have some observations about that. Um,
Yeah.
teach their partners. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, right. As a trauma therapist, what's really sticking out for me, I'm wondering, this sounds really traumatic. From the first words out of your mouth describing this surgery, I'm feeling traumatized just by, in secondary trauma, hearing about it. Does this cause PTSD, or does this cause trauma to a baby, or to,
sure,
later down the line, an adult?
sure. And this is something that I think that I personally really found very difficult and very painful to understand over the
Mhm.
years. I always thought from the minute I understood what circumcision was, I thought it was a really mean thing to do to a baby and
Mm,
a really silly
mm,
thing to do to, like, how could it be that half the population, all boys, are born needing corrective surgery? It just didn't make any sense to me.
mhm.
But I did not fully absorb the lifelong impact of it. And actually, my son taught me a lot about that, because when he was 18, we were taking a drive one day, and he said, Ma, I never thanked you. I never thanked you and Dad for not having me circumcised, and I want to thank you."
Mm.
And in that conversation, which didn't go a lot more extensive than that, I realized that it wasn't just something you do to a baby. It's something that you do to the man. Then,
Mhm.
as I got more into leading Intact America, um, I heard so many stories from men who had the circumcision imprinted in their memory, circumcision that
Mhm.
happened when they were 2 or 3 days old. And there's a constellation of men, and they report the same phenomenon, which is the lights, which would be, in a hospital, somebody in a white
Mhm.
coat looming over them, and then searing pain to their genitals. And I've personally heard dozens and dozens of those stories.
Yeah.
There are plenty of people who would like to dismiss it. I would like to encourage people who think they should dismiss it to ask themselves if they heard from a woman, a woman who, as a girl, a young girl, a baby, was raped, and said they had some kind of a traumatic memory of that. They would probably not
Mhm.
dismiss that. But it's the same kind of genital assault, and
Yeah.
boys undergo, usually without, certainly in the past, without any anesthesia, and always with inadequate anesthesia. Um, and so, yes, it's a trauma. Whether it's PTSD, I don't know, but
Mhm.
it's a trauma, and it will undoubtedly be laid down in that infant brain. And we know that
Mhm.
there have been studies that babies who were circumcised uh, have more sensitivity to other kinds of pain, such as during medical procedures, so to vaccinations, for example. Um, and you know, it's a violent physical assault on a child. So yes, if you know
Sure.
about what that does to children, there's no reason to exempt circumcision from the things that
Yeah,
cause that
yeah.
kind of trauma.
Yeah.
Lovers, thank you again for tuning in. If you enjoyed the show, hit subscribe and head over to eatplaysex.com to connect with me and grab my sexy guides. Because my goal here is to get you to eat, play, and sex better so you can improve your sex life, which will improve every aspect of your life. Until next time, keep it sexy.